Information modalities. Information as linguistic statements and other major informational qualities. Information modalities. Information may come in various modalities of expression. And I use this term here as kind of like media or format, but I kind of like modalities, and this term is being used nowadays in the sense. So these are the different modes of expression. So modes of expression can be via linguistic statements, also called just language or human language, paintings, photographs, emoticons, videos, emotions, feelings is also a way to express information, database structure, well, relational database structure, as we have seen, spreadsheet format, other things like gestures, like hand gestures, American Sign Language, although I would put that kind of more like language. So there are many modalities via which information may be expressed. And here we're going to be focused on this one here, linguistic statements, not painting, not photographs, but linguistic statements and language. Linguistic statements may be turned into question for evaluation. And this is a very interesting way to think about information because it helps us think about the evaluation of the truthfulness, of the validity of the information. So turning into a question is always kind of like a great thing to determine validity. In fact, it may be necessary. So the statement, the earth is a sphere, question would be, is the earth a sphere? Statements, linguistic statements may also be called hypotheses or propositions, and I'll use these terms interchangeably. So this is the kind of modality of information expression that I'm going to be focused on in this set of lectures. Now, I also wanted to talk about some major types of information, some major qualities of information. And I'm not sure how to name these properly or in the best way possible, but these are ideas that I think are important to talk about. Now, we can talk about as the format or media of data. So things like whether it's recorded in the database, whether it's in somebody's mind. We can talk about whether it's primary data or secondary, like derived, or the metadata. We're not really going to be focused on this area here, but I'm going to be focused on this notion of nature and field of information. And the nature and field of information, which I'm also calling the, just for lack of a better term, just the major qualities of the nature of information as linguistic statements. Major qualities of information. And there's three major nature of information here. So that's the definitional versus causal information. One is more descriptive or just basic definition of what something is. This is more like kind of like what is, and versus causal, and this is what does. Like noun and verb, is and does. The other one is instance versus multiples, and usually like also call this single instance, or just maybe a few, one or two, versus multiple or general. So these are kind of general kind of statements and information. And also what I like to think of simple versus complex. And I think this is useful to distinguish different kinds of information and how we can go about discovering their truth. And also we need to remember that information and also just the world itself, things happen in fields, or also called domains. So things like, biology and the biosphere and politics and psychology and ethics and physics and technology. These are different fields of phenomena and fields of information. So understanding how information works in these different areas is important because each area is different. So let's explore some of these here with examples. So in the definitional side here, mostly focused here on this nature of the information. Definitional, identifying the qualities or attributes of something, identifying what something is. So Andy is a monkey, or the earth is a sphere. My computer is broken, and so on. And the causal is identifying the causal mechanisms of something, the causal properties. So smoking causes cancer. Eating bananas cause diabetes. Or I caused myself to fall on the ground by tripping yesterday. Now, the cause, can get a little bit complicated when we're saying, is this just about action or, or does as opposed to is? So for example, I turned off the light. Does that mean I caused the light to turn off? Yes, and it gets a little bit murky, but the causal are usually related to verbs, whereas the definition are usually related to states. Single instance. So single instance is a reference to a single or few individuals. Oops, it's kind of here. Or few individuals, cases, or instance. So Andy is a good boy. My two sisters are smart. Merck is making profits. The company Merck is making profits, and so on. So it's just about one thing, one object, one event, one process. And then, of course, we can also have information about multiple instances or a population or a group, and it can be generalized. So Americans like basketball. Once again, smoking causes cancer. Dell computers are not good, and so on. Simple, reference to easily attainable information. Who is the current US president? What's the average temperature yesterday in my home? Now, some of this is kind of difficult too. It does get murky. Easily attainable. Easily attainable when and how? How easy? How do we define easy? Who is the current US president? You can kind of just look it up on a search engine, or you can check via some books. So that's not that hard. It's already there, recorded and validated by others. The average temperature yesterday in my home. This is also not that hard, but it's a little bit harder because I need to get a thermometer and I need to measure the temperature like throughout the day and then get the average. It's not very hard, but it's a little bit tricky if I don't already have the tools. And then there's the truly complex, which are the more difficult to obtain information. So who was the best US president? Now you need to define best, which is very difficult and sometimes contentious. And then you have to evaluate all of the previous, however many US presidents there were, 46. How many stars are in the universe? How does smoking cause cancer? These are complex and difficult to obtain information. You cannot just Google. This is not just Googleable, or you cannot just go to the web search engine and just find it right there. And all of these, as you can see, all of these examples, some of them are more about biology, some are more politics, some are more psychology, and so on. So let's take an exercise and see if you can do it. I want you to determine what is the nature of the question by using these terms. Is it definitional? Is it single instance? Is it simple or complex? And by identifying maybe the fields or domains of the phenomenon. How big is the Earth? You can pause and I'll go on to the answer. Well, how big is the Earth? Actually, that was a problem with that question. If you think about it, there's the meaning, specificity, and meaning expansion. What is big by what? By what measurement? What kind, are you talking about, where are you measuring? Are you measuring the circumference of the Earth, the extent of the fullness of all the measurements of the circle, the perimeter of the Earth, and so on. So it gets a little bit complicated. So let's talk about what is the circumference of the Earth around the equator. Well, this is a definitional. It's about what is, not what does or causes. It's a single case. It's just one planet, but it's kind of complex because the Earth is huge and it's very difficult to measure. Now, in a way, it is already simple too, because it has already been measured. It has already been measured many ways by many people and kind of validated and recorded in many places. So it's a kind of simple question in our context. What are the fields? Well, kind of physics, but also technology for how you're going to measure tools you're going to use to measure. How was the earth created? What's the nature and what's the field? Think about it. Well, this causal, right? What caused, how it was created, create is to cause, how did it come about? What caused it to be created? It's a single case, once again, only one planet we're talking about, not many. But it's also complex because the earth is old and it's a very complex object to analyze. Also fields, physics, technology, maybe there's others as well here, right? Biology, chemistry, and so on. How are planets created? Well, similar, but now we're going to a general, because we're not talking about just the one planet Earth, we're talking about many planets. So it's more general kind of question. How old is Carol Anderson, the Emory Professor of African American Studies? What kind of question is this? What's the nature of this question? What fields? Well, it's definitional. It's just about her age, like what her age is, not what caused her, to do something. Or it's a single case, one person, and it's simple in the sense that, once again, it's just on Wikipedia. You just go to Wikipedia, right? You Wikipedia that information, and it's already there. And field of question, well, human affairs or, demography or just somebody's age. Not sure what the field would be here, but just basic human demographic information. Was the 2020 US presidential election stolen? Which one? Nature and fields. Well, definition is a matter of is, not who did it or how it came to be or why. So that's definitional. Single case, because we're only talking about one election, 1 year, one election, but complex because involves a lot of individuals, a lot of actions, and so on. And there's probably many fields here: law and legal, political, psychological, technological, and so on. Technological meaning like, were there problems with the ballots and were they infiltrated by others and so on. So it's a fairly complex issue, even though it's just definitional in a single case. That's it for this one. We'll continue this next time.